Good morning. I've been pretty consistent about what time I go on here. That's really good for me. Today, I want to talk about this. If you had to choose, which one of these would you call home? The woods, the desert, the mountains, or the oceans? And I've lived them all. And they all have their own special thing about them. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So you can get an opportunity to decide which one maybe you would like the best. We'll start with the woods. The woods, to me, is a place of gives you a sense of belonging. That's how I feel about the woods. I love the big pine trees and the smell of the pine needles. Sometimes there's so many pine needles that the whole forest floor is blanketed with them. And when you walk on them, they make a little crunchy noise. There are squirrels and chipmunks. There's the spruce tree, which would be my next favorite, and that would be known as the Christmas tree, I guess, right? I've been in the woods from Maine throughout the Midwest into Utah and Idaho. There's just something about the woods. I love the leaves that turn color in the fall, the maple leaves, the maple trees, and the aspens in Colorado with that golden, dazzling look about them. The woods is a place that I can go and just be a part of it and see all of the things around me and listen to the quiet. And I think that the woods is probably one of my favorite places because I grew up in the Maine woods. People ask me if I'm afraid in the woods, and the answer is no, because I have seen it all. In the woods, you're going to find things like ants all the way up to moose. I'm kind of in the woods right now, and Matrix and I were out, and it was dusky, and we jumped a deer right here. It was just right behind us. So there are things in the woods that are just, if you've never been in the woods, you need to go. Just even if it's for a day, just go out in the woods and walk around and just hear nothing. Hear nothing. It's a beautiful place. What about the desert? The desert is, I would describe the desert as challenging. How's that? Challenging. People think that the desert is bleak and it's not pretty because there's no greenery around, but there really is. If you go there during the season when the flowers are blooming, it's actually very gorgeous. But what about the desert? The thing about the desert for me is when you get in the desert, somehow it gets in you. And I'm not talking about the dust and the dirt because, yeah, there's a lot of that around, but there's just something about it. It's hard to describe unless you've actually been in it. I talked to somebody the other day that said they'd never been to the desert and they didn't want to go because of all of the bad things that are there, the scorpions and the rattlesnakes and the coyotes and all of the things that just really aren't all a part of it. The desert is very dry until you get flash floods. You have to keep that in mind because the desert does have flash floods. What can I say? The cactus is so many different kinds. And I'll probably say this word wrong, but what about this saguaro? Saguaro? See, I got it wrong. All right. It's the ones that have the arms. Those can be 100 years old. And they're absolutely gorgeous. And there's so many they have different things about them. Way their arms are sticking up and just gorgeous. The desert is another one of those happy places because it's so amazing. It's vast. It's flat. You have to go. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And Also, let me mention that, yeah, it's really hot there in the summer, so I don't go there in the summer. I go there in the winter because there you go. The desert I love, from South Texas, all New Mexico, Arizona. Those are really my favorite desert places. So, do you like the woods? Do you like the desert? What about the mountains? My favorite mountains are the Rockies. I just, there's something about the Rockies. I have skied on at 13,000 feet, and at 13,000 feet, you can see so much. When you're down at the bottom, though, you spend your whole time looking up at the mountains. They're rugged. The word I would describe the mountains is awe. That's all I can say. Awe. They're just so big. Sometimes you can even, if you're up high enough, sometimes you can even walk in the clouds. I mean, that is just the most amazing thing. You can see it coming, the cloud coming, or you're moving toward the cloud, one or the other, and suddenly you're in the cloud. It's such an amazing feeling. I know there are a lot of mountains all over the United States. I mean, up in Maine, I used to climb Mount Katahdin. It was just under 1 mile high, 5,280 feet, right? But the mountains are just that place that gives you that feeling of being so small. And you're humbled by the, the vastness of them. At least I am. You may see some moose. I got trampled by a moose. My dogs did one time. So you may see moose. I've seen hedgehogs. I've seen porcupines there. I've seen deer. There's a lot of different wildlife that live in the mountains too. The mountains are a great place to go. But what about the oceans? I've been in the oceans, from Maine with the cold, dark water, and in the smell of the seaweed. Have you ever smelled that? And all of the lobster boats out in the ocean bobbing around, and there's buoys out there bobbing around. And depending on where you are, you can see islands. I've actually been to some islands. I have friends that live on an island that you can only get to with a ferry. In Maine, up in the Northeast, the tides are giant. I don't know how big they are, but it makes a really big difference, not like where it is in the South, which I've also lived. I've lived in the Atlantic Ocean, in Florida. Down there, you get the white sand beaches and the warm water. A lot of people say they want to move to Florida for winter. And I can understand that, because the ocean is so beautiful there, blue. And, I used to go to Palm Beach because I live close there to the beach. And it was just gorgeous, and it felt so good on your feet. But I've been over to the Pacific coast too. That ocean, the first time I saw it, I mean, I'd been there, flew over it before, but the first time I actually, in Vanlife, went there, I was up in Oregon. And the first time I looked out over the ocean, I was speechless. It was just so amazingly gorgeous. There's something about the ocean that is just, it's cleansing, it's refreshing. It has movement to it all the time. I was totally amazed. I was speechless. I drove up the 101, I think it's called, and I stopped every, I don't know, 50 feet to take pictures, because I was just like totally amazed. The one thing I didn't do that I wish I had done is gone down and stuck my toe in the water. That isn't something I did, and I'm sorry about that now. I also want to mention the Gulf, because it's an ocean in itself. I guess, what part of the ocean is that? I don't know. But the Gulf has its own atmosphere. It has its own personality. I've stayed on the beaches all the way across the southern part of Texas, all the way over to Louisiana. And that Gulf is vast, but it's in a circle. Do you know what I mean? It's different. And the water isn't quite as salty as it is in the Atlantic and probably the Pacific, although I didn't actually touch that. But I've lived in all four places, in my van, in the woods, in the desert, in the mountains, and on the oceans. And if I had to choose, I can't, because they all have their own special place. So tell me, what about you? My descriptions, and I don't know where you live now, but if you had to choose which one was going to be your home, would it be the woods, pine needles, the sense of belonging, or the desert, the amount of sand, the flat, and the challenge of the desert, or the mountains, the awe? They are so big and you feel like so small. Or the oceans, which is refreshing and cleansing when you see the ocean and you think of those. So which one would you choose? Tell me in the comments, because I'm really interested to know, because I can't choose. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow.